Hello, can you hear me? Um, just want to be sure that you can hear me, right? Shall we start? Can someone type it and confirm that they can hear me and see my screen? Okay, cool. Can you see my screen? I'm trying to share the desktop. Okay, so you can also see my screen, right? Cool. Um, so let me start. I think I see there are like 8, 9 people, so feel free to type in here. As if you have any questions or any doubt, or if you have any, cannot see my screen, I'll be happy to then fix it. So I think I never have given this kind of talk, but I thought, when I was being told to, I mostly speak about AI and machine learning, and when I was told about talk about impact of AI on millennials, it was an interesting topic because I often talk about AI in general and how AI will change the society. So I thought it could be a cool a way to kind of tell about my way that what millennials um, how can they leverage the whole shift that's going to, well, either happening or going to happen, or whether it's in hype and they shouldn't bother about it. So I have broken down this into three major parts. So first of all, I want to talk about where I do see the opportunities that are going to come. I haven't made it full screen. The reason is I can make it full screen, but then I will miss out the chat window. So I'll just leave it like that, and then I can see the chat window also. Then I want to also talk about what happens to the old jobs, right? Like, or what kind of impact will have given the kind of skills that people have, or what kind of skills that people should build, or what kind of skills should not build, and then I will briefly talk about the future. So before I go into much detail, and I want to keep it more question answers rather than a very long kind of one monologue. So feel free to ask questions, interrupt me. Before I go into all of these things, I thought maybe it's a good idea to clarify what I'm talking about. What is AI? What is machine learning? There's a lot of confusion with people. They say, "Oh, will AI take over my job? Will AI be, taking over everything?" So one of the first how will I say, one of the first definition of AI was defined in 1950s, I think, by something called by Turing, and Turing defined a term called Turing test. And what he said is that imagine there is this experimenter on the right hand side you can see, and he's chatting. And on the left hand side you have either a human or a machine. And if the person who is chatting in the right hand side cannot differentiate whether something was written by the human or the machine, then that's a true AI system. So in a way, he defined intelligence as a machine which can imitate human behavior in the chat sense, but also in other sense that it behaves like human. Although this is quite a generic definition, but that has been one of the definitions. But I do disagree with, okay, this could be a definition of AI, but I do disagree with how AI systems would be built, because that level of intelligence, even now, it's almost 60, 70 years, are nowhere close to building such kind of system where machines have a human level of intelligence. So when we are thinking of like how machines will take over humans, we have to really understand what are we talking about, what aspect that machines will take over, or what aspect that humans are hard to replace. And I will talk about it a bit later. But also I wanted to say and there is a lot of confusion about AI and machine learning. And people say, what is AI and what is machine learning? And they often use them, both the terms, in exchange for one another. But if you really see, AI is a general term of algorithms which are, let's say, intelligent. Of course, intelligence is defined in a very different way, but let's say it's intelligent algorithms. And you can have different kinds of algorithms which are intelligent algorithms, like rule-based expert systems, heuristic search algorithms. And machine learning is one type of AI algorithm, which again could be a supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So that's basically, you could say, what's the difference between AI and machine learning is machine learning is a category of AI algorithms. But why is machine learning so important? Like, these algorithms exist almost like 10, 20, 30, even 50 years ago. What has happened that machine learning is primarily, now why people talk about machine learning, is primarily best learning patterns in data. And that's all machine learning is all about. Whatever we're talking about learning and things, it is trying to learn patterns in data that is already there or from the past. And this is very, why is that valuable? Now that's valuable because, I'll put this slide because it's valuable because there are patterns in everything that we do. There are patterns in what we buy, what we like, even what IT systems fail. So if we can model those kind of patterns or have the data, then machines can learn those patterns. And that's very useful because then machines can use those patterns to predict. Because if everything follows a pattern, and if the machine knows this is the pattern that has been followed till now, then they can also predict the future. And that's basically what machine learning we are talking about. All that we are talking about in current AI systems and intelligence that current systems have, this is basically the intelligence that we are talking about. Of course, it has intelligence, and this is also has a huge powerful, but this is nowhere close to the ultimate AI system that we often people talk, AI will be like human intelligence and will replace humans and will take over the world. That's, I would say, an exaggeration for people perhaps who want to make it exaggerated, but the algorithms are nowhere close to anything like that. So if at today's point you are a millennial and sitting down and thinking, is AI going to affect, take over things, and if what will happen in 15 years? Well, no one knows what will happen in 15 years, but in the next 5 years, I can definitely see that won't happen, where machines will take over majority of the work and will be human level intelligence. Because human intelligence is much more complex than just understanding patterns. Human intelligence is communication. Human intelligence is more about emotional, and those are the things that that will be very valuable going forward. So I hope that gives you an idea about AI and machine learning and what terms are we talking about and where is the power of AI and machine learning. There is a section that I talk about the trends. Now, this is something I drew. What I've seen over the last 5 years, there is a huge hype, and around like the hype, like humanoid robots and autonomous cars and things, and that's a hype. And of course, there is that's an early adopter. People who are high technical, they love this kind of hype. They want to create that hype, but that's not what majority of the people care about or even want, perhaps, at this point. But what is going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years? I will say that fundamentally, majority of the sectors, like in banking, insurance, health, energy, things will change, and AI and machine learning will impact or improve, especially machine learning. Let's not use the word AI, but let's use the machine learning algorithms will impact those sectors. And what does that mean? That creates a lot of opportunities for millennials or for anyone, either as someone who are looking for a job or someone who is be an entrepreneur and want to build something. And especially in countries like in India, where majority of these sectors are in a way broken. So I'll talk about that. There would be huge opportunities coming in the next 5 years. So I'm very positive that impact of machine learning positively rather than anything that people should be afraid of. I remember in late 1990s, I grew up in Calcutta, and 1990s, 98, 2000, I think the local government said they will never let computers enter the office because it will take away jobs. And if you look 15 years later or 17 years later, I think it has created a lot more jobs than anything else. Of course, the skill has to be adapted and people have to adapt the skills, but it has created jobs. And I do see machine learning would also impact that kind of level in different sectors. So let me go a bit further on, but what I'm trying to say is that what I'm saying is that basically if you pick up any sector, you will have inefficiency and limitation in existing process. And across the world, but more so in India, like, if you go to a bank, you have to fill up this form, fill up that form, like too many things to do without necessarily kind of, it is pain point. And there are patterns that systems can learn and can utilize that to create value for the end user. And why I say that, now of course a lot of people will say that why these limitations are there and what has been, because the reason is that most of these processes are built by us humans to fit our limitations. What I want to say is, for example, that if you look at the human limitations, that humans are not good at fast thinking. We have a thing called fast thinking. We are biased. We cannot deal with large and distributed data. We are analyze slow things. So computers, when computers first came, of course, they could analyze fast and they can do this analysis with large data, but they didn't have the intelligence. So still the process was, the same. Computers just made the process faster. But it didn't change the way things were done. What machine learning can potentially do is change the processes that things are done. So instead of currently, let's say, how things were that if you have to do something, you in the past, say when you had a computer, you'd go and type, in the computer, and it would be stored in a data and it would do some things. But the process was still the same. You still have to fill up the form and things like that. With the machine learning, we can potentially talk about it. You don't have to fill up any form because the data is already out there, and machines can fetch that data from different sources and create that intelligence, and you already know before even it kind of you have done something. So give me an example, like me give you this example of the banking sector, and I work in quite a lot in the banking sector. Is who needs what? Like in the past, even if there was a computer, you'd go and say that, okay, I need get a loan or I need to get an insurance. But now with the intelligent machines, since it can potentially find those patterns and predict, machine can already say that this guy would need an insurance before even the guy comes to the bank and says, I need an insurance. And that's in a way, I will say that's a positive, because that creates a huge value for the end user, and that kind of creates value for the businesses. And the process, and things makes things much simpler than the whole process of standing in a queue, filling up 20 forms, things like that. Same thing in the insurance sector. So I'm sorry, this would be the graph. I've made a mistake with the energy sector. So in the insurance sector, the car insurance. I mean, I've worked in an insurance in Belgium in building a company which was basically providing a risk profile based on how you are driving, rather than based on your age or how many years you have driven. And that's again a very valuable thing for our young people, because young people normally have to pay a lot of high insurance premium because they are young. But even if they are good drivers, because insurance companies had no way to know whether you're a good or a bad driver. But in machine learning, and you can collect the data with IoT devices or even mobile phone, that how someone is driving, and then based on that, you are getting the risk premiums, which reduces the premiums and saves money for young people. Or energy sector, like I'm working now in the energy sector also, where energy is something that we all have seen that in India, there's high electricity, there's often we lose electricity because the whole system is a centralized system. Now, but imagine if every home can install a solar energy, and how could you do that? Because people don't do that because it's too difficult process, that if they have to ask someone to come into their roof, who goes to the rooftop, analyzes the thing. But with machines, you can improve the process by making people install rooftop solar very easily. So I'll give you an example that we are building, where people can go to a system, just type in the number of the house, the machine then scans the house, identify the edges, identify the obstacles in your roof, and all done in a very fast split second. And then at the end of this process, you get an idea that, okay, this is how much energy that I could create if I'm installing solar panels today, or tomorrow it possibly how, because it depends on the weather. So it creates a very good model of adoption, and this will improve adoption of solar. So this will change the way perhaps energy sector and people see that things will come. So these are the few of those examples I gave to show that how intelligent machines could create these huge opportunities. Because machines have intelligence to find the patterns and analyze fast, while humans have the intuition, creativity, and more. So once the goal here is to bring these two together, create something I call, and some people call, augmented intelligence. So instead of thinking in a way that, okay, machines taking over humans or replacing humans, what I see and what I think is going to happen more and more is machines will augment human intelligence and build something even better than what is out there. And that's a huge opportunity for young people. Or for anyone, and not only like millennials, but if you're a millennial sitting in India, you're thinking, okay, what can I do? Or like, oh, look at those different ways you can build solutions to that. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. That you can see that as a way it is that okay, it is going to create problems, but you can also see that okay, it's an opportunity for me or for anyone to build interesting things and contribute to the society. So that's the first thing that I would say. And many people ask about the old jobs, like what happens with the old jobs. And here I wrote this. I wrote an article. It's in LinkedIn. How to build. I will let you guys read it quickly. And what I say that if your work is primarily based on something repetitive and routine, and you're sitting in a desk and you're well paid, then you should be really worried about. And this is a lot of programmers often people say, oh, we are programming, we are coding. Often coding is this kind of repetitive routine work, sitting in an office desk and well paid. And I was talking yesterday to someone who said that companies are laying off people, programmers, because this is what they are doing. They're doing a routine work, repetitive work, office desk, and well paid. And this, if your work is like that, or if you want to be work like that, then yeah, your job will be taken over sooner or later. Because you are not, as I said before, you are not using your intuition, creativity, and intelligence, emotional intelligence. The key to the next future is where you are using in your job or whatever you are doing your intelligence, intuition, and creativity, and that's the key aspect. So if your job is anything like that, then I think you'll be risk. But you don't have to. I mean, you can build. Like this is a very interesting report that came out. That what are the top 10 skills in 5 years? It came out 2015, and if you see problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordination with others, emotional intelligence, these are all soft skills. Nowhere, no school, as far as I know, typically in India or I think anywhere in the world, most of the part of the world don't teach you this, which is unfortunate, but okay. But this is what people will be requiring going forward. So build your skills around this. And of course, you can also, like when you talk about machine learning AI, and a lot of people say, oh, I'm becoming a data scientist. And I said, well, what does that mean? If you're just writing a piece of code, doesn't matter whether it's in Python using TensorFlow, then also it doesn't help, because that job will also go away. I can assure you in a year or two, machines will start writing code, which are, machine learning code. I mean, this is how it will be. But if your role is more sophisticated than just writing a piece of code and calling some functions, where you are most analyzing the data, when you are trying to understand how to gather the data, which requires a different level of creative thinking, then that's fine. And be in that space where that's where the kind of future jobs will be. So I think to conclude, I don't want to make it too long. As I said, that how can you be part of it? That you have to learn these new skills. You have to go these skills that I said, whatever ways. I mean, that's this. I think we all have those inside us, but we have to build those skills. Start working in the field. I mean, if you want to be in machine learning AI, it's great, but you don't have to be. I think this notion that every job, and I see a lot of people think, oh, all the future jobs will be in machine learning AI. I actually don't see that. I think there will be a lot of opportunities in other fields, like at a product manager level. So there is a very nice saying by Warren Buffett that if everyone is running somewhere, don't run there. That's not where opportunities are. Opportunities are where there is not people are running. And I think that there is a huge craze of people, everyone is learning data science and machine learning, coding, and that's okay in the short term, but I don't think that's something you can rely on if you're just writing a piece of code. What you have to really think, you can be a product owner, that requires knowledge, even marketing or sales, these things will stay, or in medical, other things which requires even psychology. There's a lot of different kind of it will be more diversifying the opportunities rather than having just one fixed opportunity like, okay, everyone starts being a coder. And so finally, I said that try to look for opportunities if you are looking at entrepreneur, if you want to build your own company. There is plenty of opportunities going to happen. Banks, I interact with banks and globally, and banks are super interested to hire people who have this kind of intelligence. Insurance companies, they have the money, they don't have the people. So they are laying off a lot of mid managers who work like what I said, they are this kind of work, who are doing the same thing over and over again, and suddenly one day the bank says, okay, sorry, we don't need you anymore. So the future is where there is a lot of opportunities that will come out. It's just for you guys to kind of leverage those based on what I think is going to happen. And I also think that one of the things that I'm working on now, and I wrote this article for digital communities, I think that the future will not be a top-down approach. I think the future will be where the communities will come together and build solutions. And it's not, and I will highly encourage, and that's just my way of looking at it without necessarily backing up with data, that I see a future where it's not a corporate-driven future. I see a future where people, entrepreneurs, startups, and communities are coming together and solving problems, unlike working in big corporations. And I think that's the future that I personally want to believe in and I want to work on. And I think that's a great incentive for me, but it's also people skill requires a lot of people skill creating and building this community. So I think communities will have a huge role to play going forward. So if you're a student, if you're looking for what to do, I think build communities, learn how to build communities. This is something big companies don't know. Often people don't have the skill. Many people don't have the skill. So that's the one thing I would say. Finally, I would just say that I don't think, when we talk about AI in general, we said the biggest benefits of the society will not be, to me, either this or that, which is autonomous cars or humanoids. It's actually, I think, fixing problems for the majority of the sector, people who have been left behind, who are not necessarily are in the tech bubble out there. And I say that also that if I'm going to a tech conference, it's not necessarily very interesting to me because I'm again in the bubble. But there are problems that day-to-day people experience, and that's where the biggest opportunities of future AI things goes. And finally, this is my final slide, is I wrote a book recently. I will have this final slide. But this is one of the lady, I don't know her, never met her, and she reviewed the book in LinkedIn, and she wrote something which I thought was very correctly depicts what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a future where the human and technology will come together, and not only technology alone, and where it will be driven by a community and grassroots level of adoption, not a top-down, where not the governments, not the corporates will force or put the adoption, but it's more driven by the community. And that's a very, very exciting future. I think that's a very encouraging future. I am very positive about that future, and there's lots of opportunities that young people, or not only as millennials, anyone can take this up. So thanks for your time. This is my book, which I kind of I wrote. I'm happy to share, and there are some reviews on the right. I already got this a month ago. I wrote it. I'm happy to share a sample of the book with anyone that wants to read it. The full version is in Amazon, but that's where I will end. We're happy to get your questions out there. Okay, I see there are some people. Can you explain Turing test, which you had mentioned earlier? So the Turing test in this case was the definition. What is Turing defined? How do you define an AI machine? What is an AI? And he said that if there is an experimenter, as you can see in the right hand side, and he's using a computer to type, let's say, that's a very basic thing, that he's communicating in some ways. And on the left hand side, there is the message can come either from a controller, who is a human, or from a machine. So if the experimenter who is sitting there cannot differentiate whether the text is written by a machine or the human, that's what the definition of an AI system is, that into an intelligence where humans cannot differentiate between a machine and a human. So the next question is, what are the opportunities one can explore in AI and solar? Well, I mean, I'm currently working on this project that I said. The article that I wrote, I can pull off the article if you want to see that. Let me just show you. You guys are anyway can see my screen. It came out in Data Science Central. So what we are doing is So this is let's say that typically the solar, you can see this is a screenshot of uh, um, the Google Maps taken in Delhi. And you can see that it's so difficult to identify the routes, and it's just like all covered. That's how, let's say, Indian majority, or if many parts of India have this thing. So what we wanted to ideally do is build a system that automatically, as I showed you in this video, that automatically that someone can type in, uh, and then it analyzes the rooftop edges, and this whole thing is done automatically by a machine. So a person, the problem that we are trying to solve is typically in solar. If I want to install solar, the process is I have to ask someone to come to my home. He goes to my roof, he analyzes the rooftop area, and then sends me a report. This takes like a couple of weeks' time. It's a painful process. And then you even don't know the report is right or wrong, and whether the report is in the best weather condition, in the worst weather condition. And this is all like, that's where the adoption of many people are not so well educated. And like, okay, whether we should go or not, how much money I will save, a static report doesn't really give me that impact. But if we could build a system that provides it dynamically, like not like once in a while, but like today, how much money I will save. Seeing the weather, it's cloudy, can I save how much money I will save? Tomorrow sunny, okay, how much money I will save? And that would be a huge impact, right? So that's one of the key opportunities, I will say, that in the solar energy with respect to AI. And we are building the system, as I showed you, and we can even see that the challenge was much more difficult. I'll perhaps not this one. I'll pull up another article that I wrote on this. Which challenge was that in the majority of the world, what happens is that the quality of image is very good. And this talks about the problem much more. So you can look at the article, it's machine learning bringing a new era in the energy sector. So this talks about the problem much more than just the technical solutions. I was in that article, I was talking about technical solution. What happens is that, let me show you the quality of satellite images. This is an image taken from Germany. And you can see the quality of image is so good. And so machines, without even using machine learning, no intelligence, just a pure image analysis like OpenCV, the quality is, the output is very good. But when you apply the same algorithm on Indian roof like this, you see the output. So even I spoke with a guy who is the head of Sunroof, Google Sunroof. So Google is doing similar project like this, which works very well in Western world. The majority of the world, including India or Middle East or Africa, the quality of images like this. And they said that they don't work. So that's a very big opportunity for us. And then we are trying to solve that problem is so that people can just, come and get, like, for example, I'll show you the results already. That this is made by students. So this is not made by any smart PhD data science. There are like few students working on this under my guidance, and they're building it. So you can see that this is the target, and machine is already predicting to a very kind of accurate the rooftop area. So we are trying to identify the rooftop areas. So yeah, that's what is interesting. I hope that answers your question. What's the name of your book and where can I find it? Also, I'll just type it down. The name is Creating. You can also add me on LinkedIn, and Creating Value. I will be happy to share the sample. And I think it's lessons learned for with 10 years building products, something like 10 years of building AI products, something like that. I'll just type it down, and you can just go in Amazon. So in Amazon.com, this is the product review page. But every Amazon has that, so you might have to go to the Amazon India and search the title, and then you will find it. Sorry, this is a product review page, but you can find it in Amazon. As an Indian student, how can I start learning the technologies since getting AI projects is difficult? So the way I will suggest is that what has happened, and it is very, to me, very in a very good way. So I started working in AI in 2002. So many years ago, and I started working in a project in IIT Delhi and also in IBM Research Lab, which is within the campus of IIT Delhi. And at that time, I remember I was perhaps the only guy I knew in a group of like 100 people that is working or doing something in the field of AI, or in general doing something outside their normal coursework. So when I grew up as a student, I remember that most of the students were doing things, what is in the course. And education system was just you learn in the class and that's it. There are very few opportunities outside your classroom. But now, while I'm working on this solar project, it's just amazing that how many people, students from remote areas of India. I mean, I'm talking about villages, not villages but smaller towns, second tier cities, not Delhi, not Bangalore, who are working with me in this project, who have access to knowledge primarily because of the internet. So you have Coursera. I will highly recommend that. Okay, try to go in a Coursera course or Udemy. Those are really good courses. Yesterday, I was talking to someone who said he wants to build a course in India because a lot of students prefer to have a face-to-face rather than in online. So, I mean, there are courses people are doing, but check it, because I think there's a lot of people who are also like fake, who just want to make money by teaching something here and there. But I think that there are a lot of opportunities. I normally recommend to go online, Udemy and start learning the theory, start learning the things. There's a lot of material out there, a lot of Medium articles. There's a ton of people doing things out there. Read a lot and start writing code yourself. Don't worry about someone giving you the job. I don't know if you know this company called Kaggle. I'll type it down. You guys can check it. It's a Kaggle competition, right? In Kaggle, there's a lot of problems that they put out. They provide the data, they provide the competition, so you can go and pick up a project from there, or you can there's a lot of open source code, so you can already start working in an open source code, and the code is already there, so you can read it and you can understand like what is already written there. So these are the things that you could do. It would help you massively to start learning the things. Once you reach to a certain level, so when I was, let's say, talking to students, there are 900 applicants that applied for the work that I wanted to work with, and I ended up selecting around 50 of this. Now, I was going through, when I was trying to I spoke to over 300 students. And I think what I tried to find out that what they have done, not what they have done in a work experience in a company, because often companies, not that, not what they have done outside the company, outside the company, what they have done in their spare time. Have they built fun projects? Have they done something outside? And that's a way to build your expertise. I hope that's an answer to that. What was the classification of machine learning classified, unclassified? I'm not sure what you mean by that actually. What was the classification of machine learning? You have to, if you can type it, please type it once more, because I don't think that question makes much sense to me. Implementation of neural network in AI. I don't know what you are trying to ask me. Is that question, are you asking, I don't know, implementation, neural network is one of the machine learning algorithms. So implementation of neural network will be considered as a part of as I gave you a presentation, as part of so if I look at this, you can see this, there is machine learning, machine learning is a subfield of AI, and neural networks is one of so you can have different kinds of learning, and you can use neural networks to do any of those. So neural networks can be used for supervised learning. Neural networks can be used for unsupervised learning. It can be used also for reinforcement learning. So if that's what you mean, perhaps that answers the question. Will AI create more unemployment? I mean, I think as I answered the question during the thing, that I think I want to believe in a future, or I think it will create more opportunities. In the short run, it might create unemployment, because if you are not adapting, like if you are, like as I said, if you are in this kind of area, this kind of job where you are in a routine job and repetitive work, then in the short run it will, like any technology innovation happen. I mean, if you look at the history of technology or any disruption, whether you go back to the steam engine or even IT, in the short run, of course, it created disruption. People lost jobs because old people were not adapting. But then, as you might, many people are then adapt to the new opportunities, and it creates more new opportunities. So I will see that way, that going forward, it will create a lot of opportunities, primarily because, as I wrote, that that basically most of the system sectors are broken. I mean, if people compare with blockchain and people say, oh, is blockchain or AI? And I said, look, blockchain is a technology which doesn't have a real use cases yet. I mean, I explored blockchain. I don't see where it can be used in real world still. It might take ages, maybe decades, I don't know. But I don't see this could be used in the next few years. And even blockchain people agree that. So that will not. But AI is already a level matured enough to be used in a real world examples. And that's where I see the opportunities will be coming up. So I will say, I think AI will create more employment. And the focus will be around these kind of employments that I pull up, this skills, around these kind of skills, creativity, people management, not routine work, not like boring sitting and writing something. That's where the opportunities will come up. How do we supervise AI? So that is indeed like, you know, a lot of people, there's an article, not an article, there's a paper. A paper came out, I think a year ago, which talks about ethics. Design, let me think the name of it. I forgot the name of it. It's something with designing AI or something in that respect. I had actually given a talk about it. I'm just trying to find what was the book's name. But anyway, what that say that if well, actually I can pull it up actually if you guys want to quickly see. I have the presentation also. So it will be perhaps make more easy for you guys to see, and also for me to revise it because it's some time ago that I spoke about it. Ethical AI. So what is happening is that the current AI algorithms could be seen as a black box, right? So black box in the way that why they give an input and output that people do not know. So that is a big problem. And that is a big problem, and so you can use the current AI algorithms in certain things, in making risk assessment, in making, you know, some predictions, but not where you require it to be foolproof. So if you require your machine to be foolproof, then machines are not there yet. And that's why I don't think machines should be used to use autonomous cars, because you have to have autonomous cars to be foolproof, 100% accurate to make it work. So, or if you're talking about where you need provenance. So let's say a decision was made. Why was the decision made? If you want to know why of a decision, then current machine learning algorithms are not able to do that. So it's a key question of ethics comes with where are you applying those algorithms for? So you cannot apply, or you shouldn't apply algorithms of AI or machine learning, but at least for now, where you need the why answer, where you need the provenance answer, where you need to know what the decision was made, or it has to be foolproof. But if you are talking about algorithms where it doesn't require those things, which is basically, there's a 90% chance that this will happen. And then a human comes in and makes those decisions. So decision is still made by the human, but the machine helps to make him the decision. And that's where the power of machine learning is. So that's the answer to the ethical question. And they basically said that there is a term called ethically aligned design. Yeah, that was the name of the paper, ethically aligned design. And they said that AI systems should be accountable, transparent, minimize the risk of misuse. None of these are currently being done by the current algorithms. So they are neither accountable, transparent, or misuse. So the whole new set of algorithms have to be built going forward. So I've written down, if you guys want to read it, you can read it quickly while I kind of read the other questions. Can AI replace humans since it's a learning abilities? Well, I think I can a future in 20 years. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows that. It's very hard for people to say what could happen in future. But in the next 5 years, no, because as I kind of pointed it out, the skill set, if you look at the skills of humans and machines, you can see that machine intelligence, machines don't have intuition, creativity. This is a human intelligence level. And machines have the pattern recognition and files. So the goal would be to bring them together to make decisions. But machines don't have intuition, creativity, or emotions. Machines don't know how, like in a sales example I speak in the book is, let's say machine can tell me what to say. You know, I know, let's say I have to talk to someone, I have to do a sales call. So machine can tell me, call this person at this time, and you have to say this thing, because based on the past patterns, machine have seen that if you say these words, it works well. Okay, that machine can do. But machine cannot tell you how to say it, because a lot of our communication is non-verbal, so machine will not be able to do that. So that's where the emotional intelligence and intuition and creativity comes in. So that's where I see the future going forward, where combining human intelligence with machine intelligence to build an even better solution. So I don't see where AI would replace humans. Of course, in certain jobs it will. As I also pointed out, in certain jobs like where you are sitting down and doing routine work, it will. But in other cases, no, it will not be able to do that. At least I hope not in the next decades, at least not in the 5 to 10 years it will happen. Unsupervised has a lot of demerits until it's made to learn from experience, comments. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Unsupervised learning is not learning from experience. Or learning from experience is supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is finding patterns in the data. That has nothing to do with learning from experience, right? So I think what you're trying to say that comparing with the supervised and unsupervised learning. So I don't see it as a demerit. I mean, unsupervised learning is used to cluster data which are similar. Like clustering is one of the typical use cases of unsupervised learning. So you have certain, I mean, I have in some of the slides, but anyway, I will not pull that up. So in supervised learning, you are just grouping data in one place. Now that can be that is not supervised learning, that you don't know based on the past data, but that is on the current data. And it has value because many times you don't have a past data. For example, this company that I was talking about that I built in a car, we were tracking driving data. I can pull this up quickly so that you guys can understand what I'm talking about. I think it would be Berlin Emirates Community Kuwait next. I forgot where I did. I think maybe it is this one. So here, what we were doing is we were tracking how people are driving, right? So we were tracking driving behavior based on speed, acceleration, braking, and mobile usage. And then what we had is we were grouping. This is, let's say, unsupervised learning because we don't have data of who is a good driver from the past. But we have the current data that how they are driving. And based on that, we were grouping them in different buckets, let's say. I labeled them, this is wrong. I think this label should not be there, actually. This is a wrong label. But we are just putting them in, we don't know who is it good or bad, but we can group them together. And that is purely because we don't have past data. So that has its value. And supervised learning has also its value because, in some cases, where we have the past data, well, we can learn that. So I would not say this is demerits a lot. I mean, it's used in different environment, or it's used for different cases. How to remove partial distraction of a neural network which may lead to corresponding degradation of performance. I don't understand what you ask. How to remove partial distractions of a neural network which may lead to corresponding degradation. I think you have to explain a bit more. Either you can speak, I'll be happy to understand what you're asking, but I don't understand the question. Because I don't understand what you mean the partial distraction of a neural network. I've never heard this term before. Are you talking about model fitting? Are you talking about like overfit, underfit kind of thing, or lack of data? Is that what you're trying to refer? Okay. So how to remove lack of data? Well, that's a whole different. I mean, that would require another webinar. I gave a talk yesterday about that whole thing. Is how to overcome challenges. It was in Whatish. I can't pull this up. I can try to briefly talk about it, but that is actually. I'm sorry to say that will be. There's a lot of ways to overcome data, and that would take a longer discussion. But in a way, I would say that there are basically three ways you can think about. One is where you try to fit the model, right? So you're using dropout kind of things to fit the model, right? So dropout is a typical thing where you're trying to do. If you lack of data, then you're trying to. I don't know if you know dropout, but standard you're trying to remove some of the nodes and trying to make the model smaller so that it fits the data that you have. The second thing is to go and get more data. And there are many ways to get data, like incentivize users, and I talk about value transparent, educate, and then we are using this community to drive the data or web scraping, and there are other innovative ways to gather data. So there are many ways to get the data that you get more data. The final one, I would say that, let me build that up. This is something I'm speaking today in the evening. where there's something called transfer learning. I don't know if you know about it, something called transfer learning. So this is another way that you can deal with your lack of data. So what transfer learning does is that there are predefined models. Let's say, give you a simple example that there are already predefined models which are used to recognize cats and dogs. Now you want to train a machine to recognize, in this example he gave very well, like sunglasses. And you don't have the data. You have a data you had or a pre-trained model about cats and dogs. So this transfer learning is trying to, because let's say in an image analysis, in a CNN, again, I don't know how much technical I want to go, but let me explain you, and if you don't understand, let me know. In the CNN, the first part of the CNN is feature extraction, and the second part is a classification, which is a fully interconnected. So feature extraction could be the same for sunglasses as well as for the cats and dogs. So what they do is you use an old training data, and then use the old model, and use the old model to train a new model just by taking care of the last part, which is a classification, while keeping the rest of the feature extraction as it is. And so it's kind of transfer learning. So that's another way of doing. So there are basically these three things, like, that's typical model planning, like drop out things, get more data. There are different ways to get more data, or you can use something like a transfer learning to do that. I hope that answers the questions. But I mean, this is a long discussion. I have a whole chapter about in the book, like how do you get over data. So I mean, it cannot be answered in a few minutes. But I hope this gives you some idea. Cool. I don't know if there are any more questions. It's already more than. Okay, cool. And if you guys have, as I said, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I will be happy to share just to pull up my profile. I will be happy to share the sample of the book, and I'm also looking forward to see you guys on 13. Thanks guys. Okay, bye. Who do I accept? Yeah.